Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. This time we're using RoleCatcher's career library to explore a career as a design and applied arts vocational teacher.
Interesting choice.
Right. I think this one's especially relevant to anyone listening who's, well, drawn to the arts, obviously, but also likes the idea of guiding others, kind of passing on the torch.
Yeah, absolutely. That mentorship aspect really comes through in a lot of the stuff I was reading on RoleCatcher. It's interesting because with this job, we're not just talking about being a designer yourself, but fostering that creativity in others, which I imagine comes with its own unique challenges.
Totally. So, from what you gathered, is it more than just, say, being good with a paintbrush or knowing the latest design software?
Way more, yeah. The way RoleCatcher describes it, it's almost like you're running a mini design studio within your classroom.
Oh, I like that.
Right, because you're teaching these really practical skills, stuff that translates directly to real-world design careers,
Yeah.
which means you're balancing that hands-on instruction, with actual design theory, even like professional readiness, how to be in that field.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, something we should probably clarify for listeners, because I know I was curious, what does vocational actually mean when it's attached to this kind of teaching?
Good point, yeah. Basically, it means these are programs that are very career-focused. So it's not just art for art's sake. It's about prepping students for specific jobs. Like
Yeah.
you mentioned graphic design, interior design. Those are big ones. RoleCatcher calls out.
Okay, so it does cover that traditional arts and crafts stuff, but it goes way beyond.
Way beyond, yeah. Like we're talking CAD software, 3D printing, all this stuff that's reflecting what the industry actually uses now.
See, that's already so different from the art classes I remember. It sounds like a field that's constantly changing too, which must keep things exciting for the teacher, right?
Yeah. Definitely. And RoleCatcher actually emphasizes how vital it is to stay updated on industry trends in this role, which honestly, when you think about it, makes sense. Because the last thing you want is to be teaching yesterday's skills to tomorrow's designers.
So true. You'd be doing those aspiring designers a disservice. Now, I'm already hearing a lot of really cool stuff about this career path, but let's be real.
Hmm?
No job's perfect, right? So what did Rollcatcher say about let's call them the pros and cons, the ups and downs of being a design and applied arts vocational teacher?
Sure, sure. Well, let's start with the good stuff. RoleCatcher really emphasizes the creative outlet this job provides, which honestly, if you're drawn to this field, is probably already a major plus for you, right?
For sure. Being able to flex those creative muscles while on the job sounds amazing.
Exactly. And it's not just like you get to doodle on the whiteboard during your break. It's about designing projects, experimenting with techniques, really creating that space that reflects your passion for design.
Okay, I have to admit, that does sound pretty awesome. What else?
Well, then there's that whole aspect of inspiring students. I mean, that's got to be pretty fulfilling seeing them develop their talents and head out into the world to pursue their own creative paths. Plus, like we were just saying, because this career path pretty much demands that you stay current, you're constantly learning, evolving in this field that's always changing. So you're never really stuck in a rut.
That is a pretty amazing set of perks, I have to say. But I know there has to be another side to this. What about the potential downsides? What should someone be prepared for if they choose this path?
Right. So to be totally honest, one of the first things they mention is the starting salary. Unfortunately, teaching in general, it's not known for being super lucrative, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like that's pretty common for careers that are more like mission driven.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then another thing was limited job opportunities, geographically speaking. It makes sense when you think about it because these specialized teaching roles, they're not as common as, say, like an elementary education position that's needed pretty much everywhere.
That makes a lot of sense. Not every school is going to need the specific expertise on staff, right?
Right. And then they also mentioned that beyond just a degree, you might need additional certifications in your field, which, can be a hurdle for some. And then, of course, there's just the inherent demands of teaching, right? It can be a heavy workload, and you're working with students, shaping young minds, which can be amazing, but also, stressful at times.
Yeah, it sounds like you need a certain personality, a certain passion for it to really thrive.
Oh, for sure. Dedication, too, because you're putting in the work not just for yourself, but to help your students grow.
Absolutely. So let's say someone is listening to this and thinking, this is IT, this is the dream. What does the actual journey look like? What are the concrete steps involved in making this a reality?
Well, RoleCatcher does a really good job of breaking it down into what they call career stages, which is helpful. At the very beginning, the entry level, it seems like you'd most likely be assisting more senior teachers.
Hmm.
providing support in their classes, maybe doing a lot of hands-on stuff, but really focusing on building those fundamental teaching skills.
So it's kind of like an apprenticeship then. You're learning the ropes from someone more experienced.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And they actually give an example. There's this quote where someone at that stage says they're enthusiastic about supporting both the students and the senior teachers, which I thought really highlighted those early steps, how crucial they are.
I bet. I imagine having that mentorship, that guidance early on would be so valuable. Okay, so you've learned the ropes, you've put in the time. Now what? What happens as you gain more experience?
So as you progress to what they call like a junior design and applied arts vocational teacher, that's where you start getting a bit more independence. You might lead your own classes, maybe even get to contribute to curriculum development, working with your peers, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, that collaborative element sounds really cool. Getting to work with other educators to shape what and how you teach must be so rewarding.
Yeah, and it shows you've reached a certain level of like not just skill, but understanding of the field,
Yeah.
right? Like you have something to contribute at that point.
Totally. Did RoleCatcher's example for the stage share anything about that?
Yeah, they highlighted someone with experience leading classes, but also talked about how much they loved mentoring newer teachers and how they were really actively involved in like committees and stuff to actually shape the curriculum alongside those more senior colleagues. So yeah, that collaboration definitely seems key.
So you're finding your voice as an educator at that point. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, right. You're not just teaching at that point. You're helping to shape the future of how design is taught, which is pretty cool when you think about it.
Okay, so we've gone from those initial steps to having more autonomy, even leadership, and shaping the curriculum. What about the next stage? What does that look like?
Well, to me, this is where it gets really interesting. The intermediate level, as RoleCatcher calls it, that's where you're not just teaching anymore. You're designing those comprehensive lessons. You know, the ones that seamlessly weave together the theory and the practice, that encourage students to experiment with more advanced techniques.
Mhm.
You're really nurturing their creative problem-solving skills at that point.
Wow, it sounds like at this level, you have the opportunity to become a real mentor and guide for these students.
Totally. And the example RoleCatcher gave for this stage really emphasized that. This person really focused on that holistic teaching approach, like they talked about the importance of making those industry connections, of giving really thoughtful, constructive feedback, and just constantly looking for those new and innovative ways to teach, which I thought was really cool.
It sounds like it would be hard to get stagnant in a role like this.
Definitely. Especially if you're someone who naturally gravitates toward growth, toward those new challenges, it seems like this career path really supports that.
I love that. So you're not just a teacher at this point, you're a lifelong learner, a mentor, a bit of a design visionary, maybe.
That's a great way to put it. And honestly, who wouldn't want to be seen as a visionary in their field? Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from those initial steps of assisting to having more autonomy and now even shaping the curriculum. But I'm really curious to hear about the peak of this career path, what it takes to reach those upper levels.
Yeah, let's move on to that senior level now. What can someone at that stage expect? What are they doing day to day?
I'm ready to talk about the big leagues. So at the senior level, you're not just like at the top of your game teaching-wise, but you're often shaping the entire department, maybe even the field itself. Think leading a team of teachers, being the one who's spearheading curriculum development, building those bridges with industry professionals. It's a whole other level of impact.
It's like becoming a design education rock star. You've seen it all, done it all, and now you're passing the torch while also still lighting the way forward.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What kind of example did RoleCatcher provide for this stage? Did they have anyone they highlighted?
They did. Yeah, it was really interesting. They profiled this veteran teacher who, I don't know, what really came across was their passion for making sure that transition from the classroom to actually working in design was as seamless as possible for their students.
Oh, I love that. Making sure those aspiring designers are truly ready for the real world.
Exactly. And this person talked a lot about the importance of aligning the curriculum with what those industry demands actually are and building those relationships with design firms, studios, stuff that benefits not just the kids, but the institution as a whole.
That's incredible. It sounds like at that level, you have the power to make a real impact. Okay, so let's say someone's listening. They've gone through these stages, honed their craft, they're ready to land that dream design teaching job.
Mm.
What are employers truly looking for? Is it all about having a fancy art school degree?
Well, a relevant degree is definitely important, and it was actually fascinating to see the range of what RoleCatcher recommends, by the way.
Oh, tell me more. What kind of degrees are we talking about?
So, of course, you have your fine arts, your graphic design,
Yeah.
interior design. Those are kind of a given, right? But then they also highlight art education specifically, which I thought was really interesting.
That is interesting. It makes sense, though, right? Like, teaching design, it's about more than just being good at design. You need to know how to teach, how to convey that knowledge effectively.
Exactly. Knowing how to teach those skills, inspire students, it's just as critical as having the skills yourself. And it gets even broader. They list visual communication, industrial design, even fashion design, textile design. It really shows you how your own niche within design can become a teaching strength.
So, you don't need to be a master of every design discipline, but having that depth in your specific area, that's key.
For sure. And it speaks to that passion, right? Employers, they're looking for well-rounded educators who are genuinely excited about their craft and about sharing that with the next generation. And speaking of essential qualifications, we can't forget certifications.
Right. That's something people don't always think about. Are there any specific certifications beyond just the degree that are usually required for a role like this?
Yeah, so a teaching certification is pretty standard, which makes sense. You want to make sure you have those solid teaching fundamentals, no matter what subject you're teaching. But what I found especially relevant to this field was RoleCatcher's emphasis on design software certifications.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. You want to be up to date on the tools those students will actually be using out there in the field.
Exactly. Like, it's not enough to just know Photoshop. You need to show you've mastered it. Those Adobe Creative Suite certifications, for instance, those can make a real difference in a competitive job market.
That's a fantastic tip because, anyone can say they're proficient in something, but a certification actually proves it.
Right. It's like that extra validation that you're who you say you are.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. You've aced those certifications, your portfolio's stellar, you've landed the interview. Cue the nervous energy
But,
now.
oh, totally. I'd be a nervous wreck. But that's where, I gotta say, RoleCatcher's insights into interview prep, that was super helpful. It's like getting a sneak peek into the interviewer's mind, which is always a little scary, but helpful.
Give me the inside scoop. What kind of questions should I be prepared for if I'm walking into that interview?
So one that really stood out to me was, what inspired you to become a design and applied arts vocational teacher? Like, it's not just listing your qualifications. It's about conveying that passion for guiding and inspiring young creatives, which I thought was really insightful.
That's a great question. It gets to the heart of your why, which at the end of the day is so important in any job, but especially one like this.
Exactly. Another one that came up a lot was, how do you keep up with current trends and developments in the industry?
Hmm.
Which, again, design, it's always changing. So you need to demonstrate that you're committed to constantly learning and evolving.
Right. No one wants a teacher who's stuck in the past, especially in a field like design. So being able to talk about how you stay inspired, how you stay informed, that's huge.
Huge, for sure. Oh, and then another one that caught my eye was, how do you ensure your teaching is effective for a diverse range of students?
Hmm.
Because let's be real, design classrooms today, they're full of such unique individuals, different backgrounds, learning styles, all that. So showcasing that you're committed to creating an inclusive and supportive learning environment, that's going to be essential.
Oh, absolutely. It's about celebrating those differences and creating a space where everyone feels empowered to learn and grow, for sure. Were there any other really insightful questions from RoleCatcher's list that we should touch on?
Yeah, there was one more I thought was really interesting. It was, can you describe a challenging project you designed and how you approached it? Because again, it's not just about showing off your design skills. It's about like talking through your problem-solving process,
Yeah.
how you think creatively, which, let's be real, those are qualities you'll need to nurture in your students too.
That's such a good point. It's one thing to design something beautiful. It's another to navigate those real world challenges, the setbacks, and still come up with those creative solutions and being able to articulate that process, to break it down for a student. That's a skill in itself.
Totally. It shows you're not just an artist, you're a thinker,
Yeah.
a strategist,
Yeah.
all those things that make a great teacher, not just a great designer.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about nailing the interview, showcasing those hard skills, but what about going above and beyond? What are some extra steps someone could take to really stand out from the crowd? Because let's face it, this is a competitive field.
Oh, for sure. And that's where I think RoleCatcher's advice really shines.
Mm-hmm.
Because beyond just the basics, they talk about building a strong portfolio. Like, think
Yeah.
of it as your design highlight reel, showcasing those skills, your creativity, your unique style, all of that. But even then, it's not just about the work itself, it's about how you present it.
So it's like your portfolio is your first impression. It needs to grab their attention.
Exactly. And they can even help with that. They have a whole CV and resume builder, and it's designed specifically to help creative professionals make their applications stand out, really highlight those skills employers value.
That's incredibly helpful because sometimes those standard resume templates, they don't really cut it when you're in a field as visual as design, you know?
Totally.
Hmm.
And then another thing they really emphasize is networking, which, again, in any creative field, but especially this one, it's so crucial.
Right. Like, it's not enough to be talented. People need to know you're talented.
Exactly. So attending exhibitions, becoming part of like online design communities, those platforms like Behance or Dribble,
Hmm.
it's all about putting yourself out there, making connections, showing that you're passionate and engaged in the design world.
It's about building your presence both online and offline.
Totally. It's showing that you're not just applying for a job, you're already part of this world, this community that you want to teach in.
That's a fantastic point. What about interview practice itself? Did RoleCatcher have any tips or tools for that? Because I know for me, that's always the most nerve-wracking part, those pre-interview jitters.
Oh, tell me about it. But actually, they have some really cool tools for that, like get this AI-powered feedback on your interview responses.
Whoa, hold on. AI interview practice. That sounds intense. Tell me more about that.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah.
So basically, you can record yourself answering common interview questions, and then their AI analyzes things like your clarity, your pacing, even your body language, and it gives you personalized feedback on how to improve.
Wow. It's like having a personal interview coach right in your pocket. That's incredible. Technology these days.
Right. It's kind of changing the game for career prep, that's for sure.
Speaking of game-changing technology, I'm curious to hear more about how technology is impacting design education as a whole. It just seems like a field that's constantly evolving with these new tools and platforms, you know?
You're telling me. And RoleCatcher actually dedicates a whole section to this, emphasizing that it's not just about using the latest, shiniest tech. It's about choosing the right tools for the job, the ones that genuinely enhance learning, not just distract from it.
That's a really important distinction. So, what kind of tech should aspiring design teachers be familiar with? What are the must-haves?
Well, first and foremost, mastering those industry standard design software programs, that's crucial.
Okay, so like the Adobe Creative Suite for graphic design, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Adobe products are huge, of course. But also, depending on the specific area of design you're teaching, things like Autodesk products for 3D modeling and animation, those are becoming increasingly important too.
Okay, so those are the big ones. I've definitely heard of those. But what makes them so vital for aspiring design teachers specifically? Like, why is it important that they, the educators, have this mastery?
Because it's not just about teaching students how to use these programs. It's about understanding the design principles that underpin them and how to use them creatively and effectively. You're preparing students to enter a world where these programs are second nature to professionals. So if you, as the teacher, are still fumbling around with the basics, that's going to show.
So you're teaching design thinking through a technological lens.
Exactly. Like, technology is always going to be evolving, but if you have a strong foundation in those core design principles, you can adapt to any new software that comes your way. And that's what you're passing on to your students, that ability to adapt and grow.
That's such a key point. It's not just about knowing the buttons to press. It's about the bigger picture, the why behind the design.
Okay, so we've got those essentials covered.
Mhm.
What are some other maybe more unexpected or exciting technologies that are starting to shape design classrooms? Because I feel like there's always something new and innovative popping up. Oh, for sure. And this is where it gets really cool. We're seeing virtual and augmented reality being used more and more in education, and design is no exception.
Whoa, VR and AR in the classroom. That sounds incredibly futuristic. How are design educators actually incorporating those technologies? I'm having trouble even picturing it.
I know, right? It's about bringing the world into the classroom, literally. Imagine taking your students on a VR field trip to the Louvre to experience those Renaissance sculptures firsthand, or using AR to overlay design plans onto a real-world environment. so they can see how their ideas would actually look and function in a space.
That's incredible. It's not just theoretical anymore. It's immersive, it's interactive. You're not just learning about design, you're experiencing it.
Exactly. And beyond just being really engaging and cool, VR and AR, they're incredible tools for design prototyping and visualization. Students can experiment with designs in a risk-free virtual space before committing to those physical materials, which can be expensive.
That's amazing. It's like having a digital sandbox where you can test out all kinds of crazy ideas without the limitations of the real world. I can see how that would be so beneficial for learning and exploring different design possibilities.
Absolutely. And it allows for a level of freedom and experimentation that just wasn't possible before. And the tech is only getting better and more accessible, which is exciting.
It is exciting. Okay, so we have VR and AR, which are definitely revolutionizing things. What other cool tech is out there that we should have on our radar?
Well, another big one, and I think this is particularly relevant for aspiring design and applied arts vocational teachers, is the rise of online learning platforms. And I'm not just talking about like basic online courses here. I'm talking about platforms that are specifically designed to connect students with working professionals around the world.
Oh, wow. So online learning, but with a really direct connection to the industry. That makes a lot of sense in a field like design, where so much of it is about real-world experience and networking.
Exactly. Imagine online workshops led by designers at top firms, guest lectures from renowned artists, even mentorship programs where
Right.
students can connect one-on-one with someone working in their dream field. It's about breaking down those geographical barriers and exposing students to a diversity of career paths and perspectives that they might not otherwise encounter.
It's like building a global network of design mentors. That's such a fantastic opportunity for aspiring designers who, let's be real, sometimes those traditional classrooms, they can feel a little, I don't know, isolated from the real world.
Totally. And it's not just the students who benefit either. These platforms allow educators to connect, share their expertise, learn from one another. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
It sounds like it. Okay, so we have VR, online platforms.
Hmm.
What else? I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, we are just getting started. Something else that's really huge, and RoleCatcher highlights this as well, is the increasing importance of digital portfolios. Like, these are non-negotiable for aspiring designers these days.
Absolutely. It's their chance to showcase their best work, their unique style, all in one easily accessible place. Are there any platforms in particular that you recommend checking out?
Yeah, Behance and Dribble are both super popular, and for good reason. They have really sleek interfaces, they're easy to use, and they have this built-in community of designers who can provide feedback and inspiration. Plus, a lot of employers specifically look for candidates on these platforms, so it's a great way for students to get their work in front of the right people.
It's like a digital window display for their talent.
That's a great way to put it, and allows them to start building their professional presence even before they graduate, which is huge in today's competitive job market.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got the portfolio covered. What else? What other tools or technologies do you think are essential for design educators to be thinking about as we move further into the digital age?
Well, one that I'm personally really excited about, and I think deserves more attention in design education, is video.
Video, you mean like creating design tutorials or something?
That's one way to use it. But video can be so much more than just tutorials. Imagine students documenting their design process, creating animated presentations, or even filming short documentaries about designers or design movements they find inspiring.
It's about using technology to tell stories through design.
Yes. And that's what's so exciting about this field. It's constantly evolving. It's about finding new and innovative ways to blend creativity, technology, and education to create truly engaging learning experiences.
Those are some really inspiring examples, and I love how you've highlighted the power of storytelling through design, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, connecting with people on an emotional level. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to pause for a moment and ask you, our listener, to think back to your own experiences with design education. What role did technology play, if any? Were there any tools or platforms that you found particularly helpful or inspiring? Take a moment to reflect on that, and we'll continue this deep dive in just a bit. That was a great question to reflect on. It's amazing how much technology has already changed how we learn about and experience design. But you know what I think will always be important?
What's that?
Passion.
Yeah.
All the tech in the world can't replace that genuine love for design, that desire to share it with others,
100%. And that actually reminds me of something RoleCatcher emphasized, finding that joy in the journey of becoming a design and applied arts vocational teacher. because it's not always going to be easy, right?
Right. So how do you hold on to that spark, that enthusiasm day after day, especially when you're facing like a mountain of grading or a classroom full of, shall we say, energetic students?
Well, I think it starts with remembering your why. Like, why did you choose this path in the first place? What is it about design and education that truly excites you? And then, like, really hold on to that, especially when things get tough.
It's about reconnecting with that sense of purpose.
Exactly. And sometimes that means, taking a break from lesson plans and just immersing yourself in inspiration. Visit a design museum, take a workshop, experiment with a new technique, or just browse some amazing design portfolios online. Just remind yourself why you fell in love with design in the first place.
Love that it's like hitting the refresh button on your own creativity.
Totally. And then, honestly, don't underestimate the power of community. Teaching, it can be isolating sometimes, so finding those connections with other design educators, that's huge.
That makes a lot of sense. Like having people who get it, who you can share those experiences and challenges with, it's like a support system, right?
Exactly. Whether it's through professional organizations, online communities, or even just informal meetups, having that space to bounce ideas around, share resources, get feedback, it can be so rejuvenating.
It's like having a creative support system to cheer you on. What other ways can design and applied arts vocational teachers kind of stay connected and find that support? Because it sounds like it's so essential in this field.
Well, something else RoleCatcher talked about was mentorship, which I thought was really interesting. And not just being a mentor to your students, but also seeking out mentors for yourself.
Oh, I love that. So even seasoned educators, they can still benefit from having a mentor.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn, a fresh perspective to gain. Connecting with someone who's been in the field longer than you, it can provide such valuable guidance, whether it's dealing with a challenging classroom situation or just staying on top of those latest industry trends.
It's like having an experienced guide to help you navigate all the ups and downs of this career path.
Totally. And then, of course, there's the flip side, mentoring someone who's just starting their journey. That can be so rewarding, too, getting to share your knowledge and passion with someone who's eager to learn. It's a win-win.
It's about paying it forward and enriching the entire design community. Love that. Okay, any final words of wisdom from RoleCatcher on how to truly thrive in this role? Because I feel like we've covered so much ground, but I'm always up for more inspiration.
Okay, one last thought that really resonated with me was this idea of embracing a growth mindset.
That's something we hear a lot these days, but what does it actually mean for someone who's, say, teaching design?
It means approaching your work with curiosity, being willing to learn from your mistakes, and really believing that you can always improve no matter how experienced you become.
So it's about seeing those inevitable challenges, those setbacks, not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. Be open to new ideas, new technologies, new ways of approaching design education. That kind of attitude, it's like fuel for personal and professional fulfillment, especially in a field as dynamic as this one.
That is such an important reminder. It's so easy to fall into routines, to get comfortable, but a little curiosity can go a long way. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of design and applied arts vocational teaching. We've explored the skills, the technology, the interview process, even the importance of passion, mentorship, and community in this incredible field.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And if you're still listening, it means you're probably as excited about this career path as we are, which is awesome. Don't forget to check out RoleCatcher's full career guide for even more insights and resources. Until next time, keep designing, keep learning, and keep that passion alive.